Now, I welcome our keynote speaker for the day, Mr. Pratik Gauri. Mr. Pratik is a Delhi-based global impact entrepreneur who has done his MBA from IIFT. He is an investor, public speaker, and writer, and he also represented India at the World Economic Forum. And he is also spearheading the transition from Industrial Revolution 4 to Industrial Revolution 5. And he is also the Indian president of the Fifth Element Group, and he's a co-founder of Let's Do This, Al Control, hashtag Let's Go Social, and the co-founder of India Needs You, and the co-founder of Glastick, and whatnot. He also holds executive position with the Tata Group, and he is also voted as India's top purpose-driven leader. Welcome you, sir. The floor is all yours.
Yeah, thanks everybody for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here. And thanks to everybody for joining on the weekend. So I'll just quickly run you guys through my journey or what's it's been like in the entrepreneurial space. So I started building companies when I was 16 years old, and the first company I built was in the education space, and since then I've been kind of promoting a concept of a fifth industrial revolution, which basically states that you can make more money if you do more good to the world. So the more good you do, the more money you make. And to prove that thesis, I've been setting up businesses one after the other, and I've set up 9 companies in the last 15-16 years around this concept, and have invested in a bunch of companies as well. I invest actively 5 to 6 companies almost every 15-20 days. And the companies that I've been setting up, as I said, the goal was to create the fifth industrial revolution, and I represented the country and my companies at World Economic Forum Davos, World Forum Oxford, the Nobel Peace Prize Forum Oslo, the United Nations General Assembly, and a bunch of others. And by 2019, when COVID hit, I was actually at an inflection point in my career where I was like, how do I scale this concept to 1 billion people? Like, I was already impacting tens of millions of people, generated tens of millions of dollars, and money stopped motivating me after a point. And then I was like, how do I scale this concept to 1 billion people and help the world become a better place? And that's when I founded Fire, which is currently a blockchain ecosystem. It's the world's first sustainable blockchain ecosystem. We are, of course, the India's only layer 1 blockchain and India's largest. We started our journey a few months back in this company, and in about the last 5 months, we've already scaled the company to to a point where we have more than 80 employees, and we recently we've closed $21 million funding round at a $110 million valuation. So we are one of the fastest companies to grow that big. What we've been doing in this is actually we've set up a layer 1 ecosystem. So think of it as a Linux. So as you know, like, it's a Web3 company. So Web 1 was all about curating the internet. And you see the internet was created, every website, everything that was built in the 1990s. If you see the biggest companies of the world right now, they were all built in the Web 1 space. Web 2 it was all about social media. So it was centralized, but it was social media. And in the last 15 years, you've seen that social media has taken the world by a storm because it's really grown, right? It was basically trying to connect people. So the first was internet, the second was social media. And now we are moving the world towards decentralization. So the biggest problems that the world currently has, if you see that the social problems have still not been met: financial inclusion, gender inequality, climate, renewable, solar, wind, clean water, clean sanitation, and a bunch of stuff, right? So basically, we've been kind of using the language of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which are 17 global goals of sustainable development. Through this ecosystem that we've built, we have our own layer 1 blockchain, which, as I said, we are the only ones in India who kind of built layer 1. So layer 1 is basically a solution like a Linux, and layer, so basically the next Olas, Ubers, Oyos, whatever come up, they can, if they want to be decentralized and they want to be sustainable, they can build on top of us, and they automatically end up becoming sustainable. Because the way blockchain works, there's a governance mechanism which is called consensus. So our consensus, basically, that's our unique selling point, and also our secret sauce. Actually, it scrapes data from 600 ESG sources. It tokenizes in 17 UNSDGs, and that's why any company that builds on top of us automatically end up becoming sustainable. So that's what we've built. We have our own exchange, we have our own wallet, we have our own NFT metaverse marketplace. We have exclusive rights to Mr. Bean and a bunch of other celebrities. And we sell, each NFT goes for more than $1 million each. So we've been doing that. And then we also have a venture capital fund. So we fund and incubate businesses which are working around the sustainable development goals and want to help create the fifth industrial revolution, help the world become a better place, and then make money on the side. So this is, pretty much about what I've been doing in the professional sphere in terms of creating one company after the other and helping the world transition from a for-profit economy to a for-benefit economy. So currently, if you see that most of the companies that have been built have done great stuff, meaning in AI, 3D printing, machine learning, and a lot of technologies have done a great stuff. But basic humanity still faces a lot of social problems. So what the goal of fifth industrial revolution that I've been kind of trying to create is about how can you use these technologies for the betterment of humanity. We currently partnered with AICTE, so all the student records of grade 10, grade 12 will now reside on a blockchain. We are also partnering around smart policing, predictive policing, to make our police system better, more efficient, more accountable. There will be a lot of trust in the process. So we have a lot of state governments who've already signed up. We are also now close to we've been working with the central government as well on influencing the public policy and shaping the public policy around the blockchain space. You will see that in the upcoming budget as well when Nirmala Sitharaman speaks about it. So we've been, I've been doing a lot of stuff. Currently, I focus most of my energy and time into Web3. We are literally curating the Web3, which basically means we also own all the domains of Web3 space. So which basically means that currently we all use HTTPS. When the decentralized happen, it will move from HTTPS to Web3. So yeah, for instance, the domains currently are HTTPS, google.com, and all the data gets stored on the centralized server. We made the entire process decentralized, and so there's no leakage of data, there's no breach of trust, and a bunch of others, right? So very, very deep in the blockchain space. That's what takes away most of my time. As I said, I invest actively, a lot of companies almost every month who are working in the Web3 space, trying to build a better world, curate a better tomorrow, and then using all the sorts of technology that have already been created in the fourth industrial revolution. And most of the people here, I assume you're all in school, you're all in studying right now in college. So I would actively encourage you to try out the entrepreneurial route, because I think the biggest thing that we as Indians, when we are studying, and we don't try because we think we'll fail, and we don't even end up trying, and we end up working for Fortune 500 companies, which by the way is great. Like there's no problem about it. You guys gain experience out of it. But then I think once in life you should definitely try out entrepreneurship just to fail. Don't think you'll succeed, but just to fail, because in that failure you actually learn so much, which will actually benefit you become a better person, both professionally and personally in the long run. Because most of my learnings, wherever I've reached, have just been because I've been trying entrepreneurial stuff, like building one company after the other. I failed a lot of companies as well, but the learning that you get out of it is amazing. And I can tell you something, when I'm interviewing candidates to work for my company now, like when I want if somebody tells me I worked for 3 years for my startup and I failed, versus somebody saying I worked for a Unilever for 3 years or I worked for a Microsoft, I would hire the person who ran a startup, because I know that the person would have had to fail. You need guts. You basically need a lot of courage, and you have more resilience, right? So I would encourage you guys to definitely take up the entrepreneurial route. And you guys are the future of the country. I mean, all of us, right? We're young. I'm assuming most of you guys are in your 20s. You don't have any liability yet. I'm assuming unless you have an education loan, but if you don't, like, you can actually end up trying entrepreneurship, because it's just so rewarding and it's just so exciting. I currently work 18, 19 hours a day, and it's just because it's my passion. So another thing that I could encourage you guys is work on your passion. So a passion can be anything, right? You basically might want to be a painter, a doctor, or any any creative side of yours, and just try to build a sustainable business model around it, right? Like, see how you can make money out of your passion. I think that's something which is really very, very exciting. And people often say, I would go and work for a Microsoft or a Tata or any other company, and then on the side I'm going to pursue my passion. No, that would never give you satisfaction. See, end of all, everybody is here, and after a point in time we'll not be alive. Like we will, everybody would have to die. So you don't have to be on your deathbed and think, dude, I didn't try anything. just because I was scared. My parents didn't want me to try it. My girlfriend or boyfriend didn't want me to try it. Dude, like all of these things will happen, but you need to try and fail. That's the best part of life. Like it's so amazing to fail, right? Like why do you, I mean, I actively tell most of my friends, like, I failed so many companies. So what's wrong in it? Like it's so cool to fail. Like what's wrong in failing? Like success will follow, right? If you fail 100 times, I can tell you the 101st time it will be successful. So it's not a, so yeah, I mean, I would actively encourage you guys to take up entrepreneurial route. And yeah, that's pretty much about my journey. If you guys need any help, I'm very active on social media. I have a big team on social so we're very active on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and all the other handles. You can actively write to me if you are starting a company in the Web3 space, which is mostly around blockchain, NFT, metaverse, or anything, and you've built a prototype and you already have an MVP. If you're looking for funding, write to me. As I said, I actively invest in those companies. Yeah, but don't be. I mean, my biggest lesson for you guys would be don't be scared. I mean, and also I can tell you, like I personally think that a lot of people who do jobs just because they are scared, I can tell you it's nothing. It's equivalent to a mental suicide. So you're basically killing your dreams just because somebody's asking you to do it. So don't do it. Do follow your passion, do what you want to do, not what the society asks you to do, because it's your life. And yeah, and just do what you really want to do in life. So entrepreneurship is something that I've been very passionate about since I was a young child. I grew up reading about Elon Musk and Steve Jobs and those kind of people. So yeah, so I've been, and those have been my inspirations. So please draw inspirations from people who you really think would inspire you. Follow them on social. Life's become so easy with social media, actually, because you already know what the other person is up to just by looking at somebody's LinkedIn or an Instagram or Facebook or whatever. So life's easy for us, where and starting a business has never been so simple. It's actually cheap. It's actually as a zero cost. You just need one Instagram or a Facebook or a LinkedIn page and you're live, right? You can even register the company later. You can just go live with whatever product you have. So and also I think when you're currently studying, think of this as a networking class where you kind of think, one person can be the CMO, the other person can be the techie or the CTO, or if you're thinking of some product, think on those lines rather than thinking and studying where, I have 5 job interviews. Think how can you create jobs rather than you wanting a job. I think that's a really, really a mindset game. And yeah, so if you have that kind of abundant mindset, is very, very important. I would actually encourage you guys, if you haven't read Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's a beautiful book that would open up your eyes. Yeah, and I'm also writing a book now, so I'll be coming out with that very soon as well. But yeah, so over to you guys, and thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure. If you need any help regarding anything that you're facing, please feel free to write to me on social media. I'm very active. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Pratik, for your time. I guess Gayatri and Gayatri and Sejal, we can open for the questions. We can open the questions for the audience. If there are any questions, Saket, please go ahead and ask Pratik sir about this.
Yes, so I have received 2 questions. So the first one is how to deal with the resistance to change and adapt to this new concept. What are the small steps that can be done to make people adapt to these concepts?
So look, so I think first is you need to educate yourself. I mean, first is basically educating yourself, and everything's available on YouTube. We're also coming up with something called Fire School. We're partnering with universities to impart blockchain curriculum and teach blockchain, because that is currently not being taught in most of the schools and colleges. But everything's available on YouTube, right? So first educate yourself and make sure you know it. Then the second is building a community which knows about it, right? So basically hang out with friends or hang out and make friends who also know about the particular concept. um, And after you've done it, then it's very easy. Then you start building a company around it if you really like that concept. So I think that's, and when you talk about resistance, I think I already spoke about, there's a lot of inertia with the kind of families we come from, even your colleges, schools. So I'll tell you, when I started my first company, my parents were never supportive of it. I mean, there have been a lot of people who kind of I mean, nobody's supportive of your first company, to be very honest, until you actually do something which is really which people know about, and they're like, wow, this is something cool. But until you build something cool, it's mostly resistance from your friends, your family, and everybody. So you need to be, as I said, entrepreneurship is all about resilience as well. So you need to be resilient. You need to believe in yourself. Look, if you don't believe in yourself, people will not believe in you. But if you believe in yourself, it's just a matter of time. It might take 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, but in the end, the green is, will be so the grass would always be green once you've crossed all the hurdles. So don't worry about that. Just keep building. And yeah, just make sure that you hang out with the right people. So if you're hanging out in the company of, I tell this almost every time, so your network is equal to your net worth, right? So whatever network you have defines your net worth, or whatever you're going to build in the future. If you're hanging out with people who are just partying and were not doing anything, you'll also end up partying. And if you're hanging out with people with 100 IQ, or people who are stupid, you'll also become stupid. But if you're hanging out with people who are really cool, who really want to build stuff, a good IQ, then you'll also have motivation to do the same. So the best friends actually define who you are. So make sure you have the right circle. I think that's very, very important. And I think family, there's resistance initially, but then once you start building something, I think then there is no problem. They end up believing in you once you've built something. So yeah, take that resistance initially, and once you're done, it's awesome, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. So there's one more question. How are you different from OpenSea? Also, the large tech companies in India, for example, Tech Mahindra, Accenture, etc. Others like Guardian and Beyond Life.
Yeah. So we are very, very different. Look, I mean, we are the only company in the world which basically has embedded sustainability into our consensus. As I said, like, that's a secret sauce and nobody's ever done it. We are the first movers in the market. We basically, so look, most of the layer one blockchains that you know of, whether it's Ethereum or Solana or anybody, they use proof of work or proof of stake, which basically means the high computational power is not good for the environment. And in some cases, if you're talking about proof of stake, then it basically means that, if you have a higher stake, you end up governing the blockchain, which basically means that the rich becomes richer and the poor become poorer. And that's something we have to change. And that's the entire point of blockchain, right? Financial inclusion, because traditional banking hasn't been able to solve that problem. It's always been the rich getting richer, poor getting poorer. So with us, we use something called proof of benefit, which is our secret sauce, which is our own consensus and proprietary and patented, which basically, as I said, rewards businesses for following sustainable practices. So we tokenize 17 SDGs of the United Nations. We scrape data from about 650 environmental, social governance factors. So if two of you people, so if they're A and B, like two people running two companies, if A basically has 50% women in the workforce, has more carbon credits versus B, who has less women, doesn't have carbon credits, A would be rewarded more and they will end up making more money. So that's how we are incentivizing the world. We are incentivizing the governments, Fortune 500, celebrities to actually do good to the world. And if they don't do good, they don't end up making money. That's not there in any other blockchain, whether it's Ethereum or any other blockchain you speak about. And OpenSea is just an NFT metaverse. It's just an NFT marketplace, right? So our marketplace, again, is very different because we have embedded sustainability into it. So you cannot make money if you're in our ecosystem, if you don't do good to the world, because your score becomes less. So the final score that comes out, which is the proof of benefit score through the consensus, actually takes into account everything that you're doing. Meaning, are you basically using renewables? Are you basically using solar? Are you using wind? Are you having women in the workforce? Are you basically trying to solve the problem of health tech, so on and so forth? So they take all of that into the picture, the 650, and that's how we come up with the score. And then that score basically governs the blockchain, and that score basically determines whether you make money or not. So that's how, when I say it's about fifth industrial revolution, where you make more money only if you do more good to the world, and the more good you do, the more money you make. And through that, in the next 5 years, our goal is to transition the whole world from a for-profit economy, which is in the fourth industrial revolution, which basically is making the rich richer and the poor poorer, towards a fifth industrial revolution, which will incentivize businesses for following sustainable practices, and which will make the whole world a for-benefit economy, where you get rewarded for following good practices when it comes to the environment and other places. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Over to the host.
Thank you. I would request Radha ma'am to add a few thoughts.
Hi, Pratik. It's excellent to see what you're doing. So I wanted to ask you a simple question. Maybe a couple of minutes you might want to take on this. Where what we want to know is that how do organizations get on the blockchain? Okay, why should they get on your blockchain and not others? Okay, how does that work? How do you get organizations to come on your blockchain? See, I understand from an e-commerce perspective, or from sale of art, etc. I understand that part of it. But when you're looking at organization and sustainability rankings, sustainability measures, how does that work? If you could
Yeah.
run us through with one example, that'll be nice. An application-based example. Yeah.
Yeah. So, for instance, I'll just give you a small example. So the way we also have into a tokenomics. So, into a tokenomics, something called a donor advised fund. So a donor advised fund basically, so for instance, we are working with a company called Reckitt Benckiser, and their brand is Harpic. I'm sure you guys know Harpic. So Harpic runs a campaign called Mission Pani, and they mobilize their marketing dollars towards it, right? So basically the money goes into press, media, blah, blah, blah. And what we've done instead, with them is, for instance, if you put money into a donor advised fund, that money gets mobilized into social enterprises which are working on the SDGs. So like Tata Trust and a lot of enterprises like Water for People. And what those organizations do is they end up building toilets for clean sanitation. And when that happens, you actually end up accomplishing or expediting progress towards SDG 6, which is clean water and sanitation in this case, and also there's a lot of brand warmth, as we like to call it, for Harpic, meaning the brand gets more amplified because there are more consumers which get turned towards the brand, which the brand cannot get if you're just focusing on traditional print or traditional media. So this is a very unique way of marketing, for instance, the way we are doing. And this is just one small example that I told you for a donor advice fund. We have a bunch of others. So like if any company which builds on top of us, their whole supply chain will reside on our blockchain. So for instance, Huawei, Booking.com, they're already coming on chain, and we are focusing on 5 stakeholders for now. The first is governments. For governments, we are doing smart policing, land registrations. And of course, you ask me, why would they do it? So of course, they're doing it for more accountability, more trust. Like for instance, if I talk about smart policing, if you have an FIR registered against somebody on a normal software, you can actually end up tampering with it or delete it after 10 years if you're very influential, right? But if you're on the blockchain, you cannot delete it. Like even the founders of because we can't delete it, right? So it stays on the chain. So of course there is more security, more accountability, more trust. And then we use AI and ML to make sure that for policing, you actually deploy manpower according to the traffic. So that's what we're doing on the police side. With AICTE, we have signed up to get all the 8 to 10 million records on a blockchain. Again, there's a lot of benefits for it. Of course, you can't tamper with the records. The record stays safe. It's paperless. It's very, very cost effective. And you roll out all the degrees for grade 10, grade 12 kids will also be rolled out to our blockchain. We've also embedded into it something called a happiness index. So every kid of a grade 10 or a grade 12 class actually gets asked 2 questions in the morning and in the last day of when the day ends, is what you want to do in the day, and what are you able to do what are you able to achieve what you wanted to do. And the difference between that we call the happiness index. And we've also embedded some other factors into it. The research team has been doing a amazing job. So so the way the blockchain works, there's an app that, for instance, in this case, there's a D app, which is a decentralized app called Your One Life, which is built by Yogesh. So he's building the app on our blockchain. So we are basically nothing but a layer 1 solution. Think of it as a Linux, and any company or any government. So we're targeting 5 stakeholders: companies, which are Fortune 500s, governments, celebrities, billion-dollar impact family offices, and universities. So those are the 5 stakeholders. We are actively working with all those 5 to get all their records on our blockchain, which obviously is a lot of benefit for them. As I just gave you 2-3 examples, but there are a lot of them, even with municipalities on land registration. You don't have to go register a house and then keep all those papers like currently what happens in India. With the blockchain, you don't have to do it. It's of course paperless, but then it's of course more secure, and it's very quick, and it's also cost effective. There are a bunch of benefits. And then because there's sustainability factors or 650 sustainability factors embedded into the consensus, it's become very easy for us to actually incentivize any organization for following sustainable practice. Like, just to give you a small example, if we put Dove is a brand of Unilever, we put Dove's supply chain onto our blockchain, right? So it's very easy for us to see on how well they're incentivizes people who are actually manufacturing the product. And if they're not incentivizing it, Unilever doesn't end up making money. Right? And if they don't, so basically we're incentivizing a company like a Unilever to follow sustainable practices. And why would they want to be on chain? Because if they're on chain, they of course have supply chain automation. They have they save on costs. And then the best part about it is where they can openly advertise and market that they're sustainable, because it's all on the chain and the consumers can actually see what they're doing on the supply chain side. So we are actively speaking to Starbucks, Unilever, Procter & Gamble, Google Cloud, Microsoft, and a bunch of others to start bringing them on chain. And the only reason most of the companies, if you see, they haven't adopted Ethereum, which is of course currently the most used blockchain. And the reason they haven't done it is because if you see the gas fee or the transaction fee, it's insanely high. So it's not actually built for a middle class or a lower middle class, or even a poor people. Like, poor people can't even get on chain because it's so high. The trading is so costly. And then of course they're not sustainable at all, because they mostly use proof of work. Solana, for instance, would use proof of stake. When you use those kind of consensuses, it's basically, as I said, either using high computational power, which is not energy efficient, or they're using not using renewables, or they are basically incentivizing the rich to get richer in proof of stake, for instance. And we've actually reinvented the consensus where we use proof of benefit, where you actually get incentivized for following these sustainable practices. That's why, we're working with those 5 stakeholders, and all of them have started to already come on chain. Sorry, you're on mute.
That's interesting, I said, but there's lots of jargon thrown in, and I think I need to get on the internet, and like you said, watch those YouTube videos on what all of this means. Okay, so I must say thanks. I have been reading a little, and I've been hearing conversations at home, because because one of the companies that I know is looking at blockchain for something, and that's the reason why I'm looking at. I mean, why I'm hearing these conversations at home. So you spoke about Microsoft, you spoke about Amazon, you spoke about Microsoft and Google. They already are, they're also promoting blockchain by themselves, right? So what is the difference between, why did you say that they would be your clients on the blockchain that you're building?
Yes, so there's 2 things to it. They are companies. They don't have their own layer 1 blockchain. So
Okay.
they would need a layer 1 solution to build on top, right? So basically it's like a Linux. You can't build. So the next Uber, which wants to be decentralized, Uber is just an app, but you need a technology. So we are like a BaaS, blockchain as a service. So you need a layer 1 blockchain. So they would have to use a layer 1 chain. They are just companies. So they would either need to use an Ethereum, or they need to use us. And I was just trying to tell you why we are way better than most of the other layer 1 blockchains.
Sure.
So that is why they would be more keen on using us. Microsoft, they will get on blockchain. They will bring their everything on the chain, but they need a chain, right? So we are that chain.
Got it. Yeah. Thanks.
Sejal and Gayatri, we can move on to the results now. Sure.
Definitely. So I hope now we don't have any more questions from the audience. So we request our guest of honor, Mr. Pratik, to announce the results of eSummit 2022.
Yes, I will just announce it. Just a second. Okay, first I'll announce the second runners-up. First of all, congratulations for all of you guys for participating in that. It's great to see the entrepreneurial spirit amongst you all. I hope you guys also end up building unicorns in the future, which is amazing. And around social impact in the Web3 space. But yeah, the second runners-up, the team name is D Square. Congratulations, Somaiya Dubey and Kanish Dubey. I hope I'm pronouncing your names correctly. Congratulations. The first runner-up is Absolute Jugaad. Well, Jugaad is a good one. And team members are Akshita, Sakshi, and Amish. Congratulations to all three of you. And the winners are The Consultants, Gaurang and Sanjana. So congratulations to all the three teams and all of you team members.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pratik. Congratulations to all the winners. It's our pleasure to host such aspiring teams. Now,
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye. If you need any help, please feel free to ping me on any of the socials. Bye.
Thank you. So guys, moving towards the end of our eSummit 2022, I would like to propose the vote of thanks. Honorable professors and my dear friends, it seems to be a great honor to propose the vote of thanks to all those who helped us in making our eSummit event a very resounding success. I'd like to express my hearty gratitude to all our distinguished guests for gracing today's event, Mr. Pratik Gauri, Mr. Surujit Mahato, and Mr. Satyajit Hange. Would also like to thank our moderator, Mr. Shantanu, along with our faculty members, Professor Dr. Radha Iyer, Professor Prema Bhaskaran, Vandana Tripathi ma'am, and Dipali Mishra ma'am. We are grateful for all your insights and hope that we will be able to carry them towards our career.
And we would also like to thank Dr. Monica Khanna ma'am for giving us this platform to conduct the spectacular event. And also, we would like to thank our Public Relations and Branding Committee for this constant coordination in ensuring each and every person interested in the event get to watch the event on YouTube and Facebook. And also, happy to express our vote of thanks to our steering team consisting of convener Punendu Pradhan, co-convener Harita Kakkar and Aprajita Singh for constant motivation and dedication. We also want to thank each and every member of the Pathfinder Committee. You all have constantly put efforts to make this eSummit event a huge success with your dedication and hard work. And we would like to end our eSummit on the famous quote, everyone can think of a risk, only an entrepreneur can see the reward. So wake up the entrepreneur in you and get started. Thank you everyone for your presence. You may